विष्णुपादाय कृष्णकृष्णाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिन्ति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes to the light of knowledge. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So,
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
our discussion on, I'm sorry about the delay, devotees.
No worries, Mataji, no worries.
Please forgive me. Oh, one second. Okay, so we'll continue our discussion on Canto 1, chapter 90. Very, very wonderful chapter. So, Parikshit Maharaj is going to meet Sukadeva Goswami. He is sitting on the bank of Ganga or Yamuna, whichever. According to the verses, it is Ganga, but according to the purports, it is Yamuna. So we were until what verse? Okay, one second. Let me see.
I think Mataji, we finished 23. That's what I think I have, but if anybody can confirm.
Yeah, we finished 23. We are going to do 24. Or I think I now ask you about my immediate duty. Yeah, this 24th, we did 24th.
We did 24th?
Yes. Anybody remembers anything? Yeah, I remember. I think I read it in the end. No, yes, I think so. I will come from all parts of the universe. You are all as good as supreme knowledge personified, who resides in the planet above the
I don't recall Mataji 24th though. Probably.
Okay, anyways, it's very nice, beautiful verse. We can do it again. So someone remember anything about this chapter? What is happening here? What are the some take? So one thing is that Maharaj Parikshit was actually he was thinking about what had happened. He's reflecting upon what he has done. So we discussed many times that how it's so important to reflect on. Then only we can understand what is it that we did and what is it that we need to improve on, right? Then only we can acknowledge, and then we can regret on things, and we can know if we are progressing or not, because okay, these are the things that we are supposed to do. If we didn't do those things, then how can we make any progress, right? So he's reflecting on, and then in the very nice point that in the purport Srila Prabhupada writes about that if we sincerely regret, then we don't incur the sin, right? Accidental sins committed by the devotee are sincerely regretted, and by the grace of the Lord, all sins unwillingly committed by the devotee are burned in the fire of repentance, right? But it does not mean that we keep committing those mistakes again, but it's just that like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says those accidental fall downs, right? Apichet suduracharo bhajte mam ananya bhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha, right? That accidental fall downs are and then he expected that something is going to happen, and he desired that calamity to come so that in future he himself or his family members don't have to suffer the reactions of his act, right? Yeah, so that's what we he could have retracted the curse, but he accepted it because it was the will of the Lord, right? And Shamik Rishi, so there were many things that were there in the previous chapter also about Shamik Rishi, how he is such an exalted personality that he dealt with his son in an appropriate way as a parent, both ways. He kind of reprimanded him as well as he prayed to the Lord, right? We discussed that part. And then we heard that his goal, so he thought that we heard in this context the verse, the Tenukampam verse was described in the purport, that how a devotee takes all reversals as the mercy of the Lord, and he reflected and he said by this his attachment to material life is completely going to be given up, and Krishna has arranged that. And we heard later on in the verses also that how Krishna arranges for his pure devotees, and the reasons for this to happen is, who can tell me the 4 reasons for this curse to happen? Somebody remember?
I can try a couple, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Parikshit, Maharaj was supposed to go back to Godhead.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Srimad Bhagavatam was to be spoken for everybody's welfare.
Yes.
And then the Kali Yuga was coming very soon.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, and one more.
I can't remember the
It
one.
was somewhere in some of the purports. Parikshit Maharaj was to be glorified.
Yes.
Because Krishna always wants to glorify his devotee, right?
Right.
And then Parikshit Maharaj decides to fast until death. And then we heard about how Maharaj Parikshit submits himself to the assembly of sages. So sages came to see him because he is a pure devotee. But Maharaj Parikshit is giving the credit to his fathers and Pandavas and all, because they are devotees. That's why all the sages are coming here, right? He gives, he feels very, very fortunate, and he submits himself to the assembled devotees, and he appreciates the Lord's mercy, and he desires to hear. Right?
Yes, Mataji.
And then what else? There was a very beautiful prayer that he does about if he has to take birth again, what all he wanted. He prays that if he has to take birth again, then what are the things he wanted? Somebody remembers?
Yeah, he should have unattached, undeviating attention to the lotus feet of Krishna.
Yeah. And
he can get the association of the devotees.
yes, Mataji. And what is the third one?
And also he get the friendly relationship with the all living entities.
Hari Bol, yes, those are the 3 things. And this kind of prayer, many devotees have asked for. Is that Sudama the florist, when Krishna went to Mathura from Vrindavan, he also asked for those 3 actually. And even Sudama also, the Brahman Sudama also aspired for 2 of them. Yeah, and then there was praise by the demigods and the approval by the sages and appreciation by the sages. Maharaj Parikshit was appreciated by the sages for his decision, right? And, so now in 24th, Parikshit Maharaj is going to ask the question. So let us read verse number 24. Okay, 1 second. Let me share my screen. 1924. Okay, Haribol. Someone would like to read? 1 second. Let me increase the size here. Okay.
I can read Mataji. Oh.
Yeah, one of you.
Go ahead, Mataji. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, go ahead. It's okay. I'll do the next
No,
one.
that's okay, Mataji. Ladies first.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Tatscha va pracham imam viprache vishrabhya vipra iti krityata yam sarvatmana mriyamanas manaish krityam sudham cha tatram shat
Shuddham. This is
abhiyukta
Shuddham.
Shuddham cha tatram shatabhiyukta. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O trustworthy Brahmanas, I'll now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances and specifically of those who are just about to die. Purport. In this verse, the king has placed two questions before the learned sages. The first question is, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And the second question is, what is the specific duty of one who is to die very shortly? Out of the two, the questions relating to the dying man is most important because everyone is a dying man, either very shortly or after 100 years. The duration of life is immaterial, but the duty of a dying man is very important. Maharaj Parikshit placed these two questions before Sukadev Goswami also on his arrival, and practically the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning from the second canto up to the last, the 12th canto, deals with these two questions. The conclusion arrived at thereof is that devotional service of the Lord Shri Krishna, as it is confirmed by the Lord himself in the last phases of the Bhagavad Gita, is the last word in relation to everyone's permanent duty in life. Maharaj Parikshit was already aware of this fact, but he wanted the great sages assembled there to unanimously give their verdict on his conviction so that he might be able to go on with his confirmed duty without controversy. He has especially mentioned the word Shuddha, or perfectly correct. For transcendental realization or self-realization, many processes are recommended by various classes of philosophers. Some of them are first-class methods and some of them are second or third-class methods. The first-class method demands that one give up all other methods and surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord and thus be saved from all sins and their reactions. Hari Bol.
You want to
Yes.
say something?
So Mataji, here Parikshit Maharaj wanted to ask about the two questions from all the sages unanimously and specifically is mentioned like how he started with Sukadev Goswami with the same two questions and basically the whole Bhagavatam is based on those and the importance of it. Like, yeah, Mataji, you have to explain. I cannot.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically the second question is more important because, the lifespan in one body is not that significant in the whole lifetime of a living entity. It means actually the living entity is eternal. So the way one die, that determines what is going to happen in coming up lives, right? So that is very, very important. And Krishna says in 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, whatever state of being one is at the time of death, whatever one remembers at the time of death, that is what we are going to attain in our next life, right? So the duty of dying is very, very important. And Parikshit Maharaj, through this pastime of his being cursed and taking these 7 days as the opportunity to hear from the sages Srimad Bhagavatam on the bank of Yamuna or Ganga, it is actually setting a example for all the citizens. For like Kokila Mataji also asked that question, and that question was asked also by the sages in the 4th chapter of 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that, oh, he is a responsible king, then how can he give up his life like that? So actually, by his dying, he is teaching how to die. And that is the question he is asking the sages, even though he knows what it is. Bhagavad Gita, he knows everything. He's a pure devotee. He knows, he's already aware, but he wanted the great sages assembled there to unanimously give their verdict on his conviction so that he might be able to go on with his confirmed duty without controversy. Right? And also to actually Krishna is to speak, this Bhagavatam has to come, right? That's why he's asking. And that is how this Bhagavatam, whole Bhagavatam in the form of Parikshit Maharaj's questions and different personalities are going to answer. Actually, Sukadeva Goswami is speaking, but he is quoting from what other pastimes have happened, right? Many places, Sukadeva Goswami is going to quote what has already happened actually from the history and from other pastimes. Yeah. So very important actually, this whole Bhagavatam. See, then in the 1st canto itself, it is showing us the real way of our living and how should we leave the body so that we don't have to take birth again. So here itself, in the 1st canto itself, all this is being described, right? So the first class method, huh?
No, go ahead, Mataji. I just had a question. I'll ask.
So this last part of the purport here, for transcendental realization or self-realization, many processes are recommended by various classes of philosophers. Some of them are 1st class method and some of them are 2nd and 3rd. The 1st class method demands that one give up all other methods and surrender onto the lotus feet of the Lord. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarupapevya moksheshami ma sucha. Thus be saved from all sins and their reactions. So Prabhupada is quoting that Bhagavad Gita verse 18, chapter verse. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu, Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, Mataji, I was thinking like death is our final exam, is the most important exam.
Yeah.
But we are not taught how to give this exam from, like, nobody teaches this philosophy. Nobody gives importance to this, except when you read the scriptures, or how we are brought up or anything. No? So it's like only when you read the scriptures you will understand.
Right. Yeah. And of course, when we hear from saintly personalities, we get, right, and script, basically engaging in the process of devotional service. Only then, if we had not read Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, how would we know about it, right?
Yes.
And then, then Bhagavad Gita is giving us the principles and Bhagavatam is parallelly giving us the examples. So Bhagavad Gita, Krishna spoke the principle that whatever state of being we remember at the time of death, that is what we are going to attain. Here in Bhagavatam, we see so many examples, like first here within 1st canto is Parikshit Maharaj.
Yeah.
And Vishnu Dev we already heard, right? Vishnu 9th chapter.
So
and we heard the pastime of Narad Muni already in the for Vishnu Dev.
So
Yes, Prabhu.
Passage of time, like probably everybody was teaching all this. It is with the passage of Kali Yuga, is just that this nobody's emphasizing this.
Yeah, so basically this is Kali Yuga, and in Kali Yuga people are, the 3 legs we heard in the previous chapters, how the 3 legs of are broken and the 4th one is also fledgling, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then we are so fortunate that we have this opportunity somehow or the other. We came in contact with Srila Prabhupada's mission and we have become so fortunate. And if you read or hear Srila Prabhupada's lectures or even Maharaj's lectures, different Maharaj's lecture, Many time what they say is that we get it and we preach to others.
Yes, Mataji.
Right? Today morning also I was hearing a lecture of Srila Prabhupada. There also he said that we are human beings. We shouldn't be like Naradhamas, like in the 7th Bhagavad Gita, that verse 4 type of people who do not surrender to Krishna. He says we are human beings. We are not animals. So we should athato brahma jigyasa. We should
Yeah.
then only we called humans when we ask questions, why are we suffering? And then he just concludes the lecture by saying that we should take up and then we should preach. Prithvi Tyache Nakaradigram Prachar Hoibe Moranam. That's what. And also, Prabhupada also said that one, the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that Yare Dekha Tare Kaha, Krishna Upadesh. Wherever you go, wherever, whomever you see, you give Krishna consciousness to them. Right?
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji.
All right. So let's move on. Should we move on?
Yes, yes, Mataji.
Okay. So now from 25 to 28 is the next section. Sukadeva Goswami enters the assembly. So this is very nice section here. Sukadeva Goswami is coming. Yes, please.
Tatra bhavat bhagavan vyaso putro yadshaya atmano napekshaha alakshya linga nija lavo tusto vritascha baler avaduta veshaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada. At that moment there appeared the powerful son of Yasadeva, who traveled over the earth disinterested and satisfied with himself. He did not manifest any symptoms of belonging to any social order or status of life. He was surrounded with women and children, and he dressed as if others had neglected him. Purport. The word Bhagavan is sometimes used in relation with some of the great devotees of the Lord, like Shukadev Goswami. Such liberated souls are disinterested in the affairs of material world because they are self-satisfied by the great achievement of devotional service. As explained before, Shukadev Goswami never accepted any formal spiritual master, nor did he undergo any formal reformatory performances. His father, Vyasadeva, was his natural spiritual master because Shukadev Goswami heard Srimad Bhagavatam from him. After this, he became completely self-satisfied. Thus, he was not dependent on any formal process. The formal processes are necessary for those who are expected to reach the stage of complete liberation. But Sri Shukadev Goswami was already in that status by the grace of his father. As a young boy, he was expected to be properly dressed, but he went about naked and was uninterested in social customs. He was neglected by the general populace, and inquisitive boys and women surrounded him as if he were a madman. He thus appears on the scene while traveling on the earth on his own accord. It appears that upon the inquiry of Maharaj Parashit, the great sages were not unanimous in their direct decision as to what was to be done. For spiritual salvation, there were many prescriptions according to the different modes of different persons. But the ultimate aim of life is to attain the highest perfectional stage of devotional service to the Lord. As doctors differ, so also sages differ in their different prescriptions. While such things were going on, the great and powerful son of Vyasadeva appeared on the scene. Hari Bol.
Ribon, you want to say something?
Yeah, Mataji. So it is said that Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that Shukadev Goswami is already liberated, so he does not need any formal procedures that usually happens for the other spiritual initiation or for the others. But for Shukadev Goswami, when he was born, he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from his father, and is already liberated. He was going naked, and the women don't feel awkward, and they feel that he's a madman. But he's, after hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, he's so self-satisfied, and he's and He had the highest perfection, Mataji. He got the highest perfection.
Yeah, because Srimad Bhagavatam is that, what is that? In the first canto, first chapter, verse number 2, Dharma Putrojita Ketutra Parmo Nirmat Saranam Satam Vedyam Vastu Vastu Shivadam Tap Trayon Mulanam. Right? Srimad Bhagavatam is completely transcendental and it is completely glorifying Krishna. So see here, we see that Sukadeva Goswami perfected he became completely perfect, completely transcendental because of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So this Srimad Bhagavatam and this Srimad Bhagavatam did the same to Parikshit Maharaj, and it can do the same to all of us and Sutta Goswami also, right? Because now when we are reading this Bhagavatam, this is being retold by Sutta Goswami to sages of Nimisharanya, right? So same thing happened to us also, just that we have to be attentive. Yeah. Yeah. So Srimad Bhagavatam it can give us everything basically. And we know that how all of us know that how Sukadeva Goswami was in the impersonal realization he had, and he didn't want to get entangled in this material Maya. So he left the home, and then just by hearing 2 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, he was attracted and he came back. So this Bhagavatam glorifies Krishna and it gives the real tattva of Krishna so much to us that we will be attracted and we will love Krishna by hearing and reading and discussing this Bhagavatam, right? And we heard that how this Sukadeva Goswami, he was naked and the women, they covered, when the girls, they were taking bath in the river, then they covered themselves when they saw Vyasadeva, but they did not do anything when they saw Sukadeva Goswami, right? Even though Sukadeva Goswami is young and Vyasadeva is quite old, right? Because Vyasadeva is in Grasta, but this Sukadeva Goswami is completely transcendental. Yeah. So yeah, there is one sentence here. The formal processes are necessary for those who are expected to reach the stage of complete liberation. Here. The formal processes are necessary for those who are expected to reach the stage of complete liberation. But Srila Sukadeva Goswami was already in that status by the grace of his father. So first of all, he had impersonal realization, and then because of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, he became completely attached to the personal form of the Lord, fully transcendental completely, right? So because of other sages who were present there, they were not of that caliber of Sukadeva Goswami, and because Parikshit Maharaj is the pure devotee of the Lord and Krishna wants Bhagavatam to be spoken, so that's why Sukadeva Goswami appears on the scene. Yeah. Should we move on, or somebody wants to say something else?
I just wanted to add, Mataji, that this Bhagavatam for us, for me, is like Srila Prabhupada's purpose. If it were not there, then I would not be able to understand this.
Yeah,
Like,
we
he is
cannot.
bringing out the real essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes, that is true, Prabhu. Without Srila Prabhupada's purports, we cannot understand. Yeah. And also, it was not available in English language before, right?
Yes.
Or just in Sanskrit. So who can understand the Sanskrit? So Srila Prabhupada is the one, and his wonderful power disciples who translated in different languages. Srila Prabhupada gave it in English, and so many other his Srila Gopal Krishna Maharaj gave in Hindi, and then Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj in Bengali, and many other in different languages they give, right? They translated in different languages.
Yes.
And I think Odia, Gaur Govind Maharaj, I think, translated
Yeah.
in. Yeah, yeah. So we are eternally indebted to Srila Prabhupada and his disciples for bringing us to this process of devotion service.
Yes.
We can never pay off to all those who have helped us in coming to this process. We are eternally indebted and grateful to each and every person who has helped us in coming through this process. All
Yeah,
right, so let's move on to next
uh,
verse.
this Prabhupada Leelamrit, he was trying so hard for
Yeah,
India government to
yeah,
help him to
yep.
establish this, but nobody helped him. Indian government give importance to these books.
Yep. And then Krishna sent him these American, European boys and girls.
To help in the mission.
Prabhupada always express his indebtedness to them. Imagine.
No.
Chalo, let's move on to the next verse.
Can I read Mataji?
You
Yeah,
can read Mataji.
sure.
Thank you, Mataji.
Tam divasyata varsam sukumara pada koru rupau amsa kapola gatram. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this.
It's okay, Prabhu. Gatra.
Charav ayatakso nasatulya karna subrav ananam kambu sujata kantham. Translation. This son of Vyasadeva was only 16 years old. His legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulder, forehead, and the other parts of his body were all delicately formed. His eyes were beautifully wide, and his nose and ears were highly raised. He had a very attractive face, and his neck was well formed and beautiful like a conch shell. Purport. A respectable personality is described beginning with the legs, and this honored system is observed here with Sukadeva Goswami. He was only 16 years of age. A person is honored for his achievements and not for advanced age. A person can be older by experience and not by age. Sri Shukdev Goswami, who is described here as the son of Vyasadeva, was by his knowledge more experienced than all the sages present there, although he was only 16 years old. Haribol.
Yeah, Prabhu. You want to say something?
Again, the essence that we have to respect of somebody not based on their age, but based on their realizations, God realization. So they a very young child can be a pure devotee, and we have to respect that child accordingly, And that's why Sukdev Goswami is glorified here, because although he was 16, he was self-realized.
And how, like in detail, his appearance described in detail. So, which is a unique feature I see in the scriptures at different places. Like certain details are described.
Right.
Just saying that he was beautifully looking and all that. So, meaning specifically, one has to be specific when we glorify somebody. It just, oh yeah, I like the whole class, but we should be specific. What is it that attracted us, or what is it that we liked, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mataji, this reminds me of Narad Muni telling Dhruva Maharaj the specific features of the Lord on how to meditate on the Supreme Personality of God.
Yes. Yeah, we should be specific in our goals. We should be specific in when we are describing something, right? So without being specific, then, I mean, it's just that means it is going deep in us when we are specifically describing the details. All right, so let's read the next verse. Someone wants to read?
Yeah, I can read Mataji.
Okay, go ahead.
Nigudhajatrum prithutum kavchascha vakshascha mavart nabhim bali valgudaram cha digambaram vakt vikarnakesam pralamba bahum somarut Mabham. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His collarbone was fleshy, his chest broad and thick, his navel deep, and his abdomen beautifully striped. His arms were long, and curly hair was strewn over his beautiful face. He was naked, and the hue of his body reflected that of Lord Krishna. His bodily feature indicate him to be different from common men. All the signs described in connections with the bodily features of Sukadeva Goswami are uncommon symptoms, typically of great personalities. According to the physiognomical calculation, his body would resemble that of Lord Krishna, who is the supreme among the Lord God, demigods, and all living beings. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, you want to say something?
Mataji, so in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is explaining about Sukadeva Goswami's beauty. So,
yeah, and this is like uncommon symbols because of their great personality, right? So that is what abdomen beautifully striped. So these are the uncommon features which are found in the great personalities. That's what Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport. Yeah. And also his complexion is like Lord Krishna. His hue, bodily hue resembled that of Lord Krishna. So because he's just absorbed in the thoughts of Lord Krishna, and then Krishna reciprocates like that. Okay, so let's do one more. Last words of this section. Sukadeva Goswami entered the assembly section. Someone wants...
Yeah, can I read Mataji?
Yeah, Mataji, please.
Thank you. It's number 28. Syamam sada pivya vyayo anga lakshmya strinam manobhyam ruchira smutena pratyutitaste munayah swasan samebhya tal lakshana gnan api gada varchasam Gudha varchasam. Okay, translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. He was blackish and very beautiful due to his youth. Because of the glamour of his body and his attractive smiles, he was pleasing to women. Though he tried to cover his natural glories, the great sages present there were all expert in the art of physiognomy, and so they honored him by rising from their seats.
You want to say something, Mataji?
No, okay. Yeah, so Sukadeva Goswami looks very beautiful because of his youth and his glamour of his body and his attractive smile. He was very pleasing to everyone, and even the sages, he gave me honor by like they stand up from their seats and give him honor. All of them, all the sages.
Yeah. So this point here, that though he tried to cover his natural glories, the great sages present there were all expert in the art of physiognomy. So basically, in the previous verse also we heard, right, that he had symbols on his body which describes that he is a great personality. So these sages were also exalted sages, so they knew, they could see those marks on his body, and they could know that he's a great personality. So they stood up even though he was just a 16-year-old boy, right? He's very young, and the sages in the assembly, where we heard in the previous verses last week that how so many exalted sages were there. They all stood up when Sukadeva Goswami comes. And so that again, that not by like the verse Janeshwar Gurunga Prabhu read, that that verse where that not by the age but by the qualities of that person, we understand we shouldn't just judge just by the age of a person. So that's what, not by the age but by the qualities and by his advancement, actually one should deal with a person in the appropriate manner. All right, so this is the next section from 29 to 40. So Maharaj Parikshit, he is going to ask questions from Sukadev Goswami. So very nice section, very, and this will lead to second canto. The answers Sukadev Goswami is going to start giving in second canto. Someone wants to read?
I can read Mataji.
Yeah.
Sa Vishnuratto Tithya Agataya Tasmai Sprayam Shirsa Jahar Tato Nivrata Hir Buddhaha Striyo Arbhata Mahasane Sopavivesha Pujitaha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Maharaj Parikshit, who is also as Vishnu Rata, one who is always protected by Vishnu, bowed his head to receive the chief guest, Shukadev Goswami. At that time, all the ignorant women and boys ceased following Srila Sukadev. Receiving respect from all, Shukadev Goswami took his exalted seat. Purport. On Shukadev Goswami's arrival at the meeting, everyone except Srila Vyasadeva, Narad, and a few others stood up, and Maharaj Parikshit, who was glad to receive a great devotee of the Lord, bowed down before him with all the limbs of his body. Sukadev Goswami also exchanged the greetings and reception by embrace, shaking of hands, nodding, and bowing down, especially before his father and Narad Muni. Thus he was offered the presidential seat at the meeting. When he was so received by the king and the sages, the street boys and less intelligent women who followed him were struck with wonder and fear. So they retired from their frivolous activities, and everything was full of gravity and calm.
You want to say something?
Yeah, Mataji has described that Maharaj Parikshit also stood up and he's bowing down to Shukdev Goswami. Maharaj Parikshit is also known as Vishnu Rata because he's protected by Vishnu, and even he was attacked by from the Ashwatthama's arrow, and Krishna protected him in Uttara's womb. So he's bowing down, and everybody except Narad and Vyasadeva and few others, they're not standing up because again, Vyasadeva is his father, Narad is Vyasadeva's spiritual master. So they are not, but everybody else is giving respect to such an exalted devotee, even though he's only 16 years old. And the people who were stuck because of his beauty and because he was naked, they were like not serious. But when they saw that the king himself is respectively is bowing down so respectfully to this exalted saint, they also thought, okay, he is a great personality. They also became calm, and the environment became all grave and calm.
Yeah. So one point should be noted here that see, Sukadev Goswami, he offered obeisance. Narad Muni and Vyasadev, they did not get up because they are the spiritual master and the father figure. So, and Sukadev Goswami offered obeisances to them, but still Sukadev Goswami accepted the seat, right? That is what it is saying. Sukadev Goswami took his exalted seat. So it sounds a little amazing, right? Generally, in front of like Narad and Vyasadev, a 16-year-old boy took the seat.
Yes.
Because why? Because he is just completely like at the lotus feet of Krishna, basically. He's just wanting to serve. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, we see how this is the culture. This culture is all over the Bhagavatam, proper culture is followed. And we saw in the chapter where Shringi curses Parikshit Maharaj, there in the purport, Srila Prabhupada described because of lack of culture and immaturity, he could do such an act. So how important is that culture? And Krishna himself, when Queen Kunti offered prayers and he was leaving for Hastinapur, then no, he was leaving to Dwarka from Hastinapur, then he embraced the younger ones and he offered obeisances to Yudhishthir Maharaj, right? Krishna himself did all these things. So then we should not have any excuse to not follow the proper culture, right? Yeah. Okay. So it is 8:24. Let's see how we did the next one. My internet. Not going. Oh, yeah. So 30th. Yeah, we can read one more quickly. Someone wants to read? सा स्मरतस्तत्र महान् महीयशां ब्रह्मऋषि राजऋषि देवऋषि संगहे व्यरोचतालं भगवान् यथेन्दुर् ग्रहर्ष तारा निकरहे परितः. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sukadeva Goswami was then surrounded by saintly sages and demigods, just as the moon is surrounded by stars, planets, and other heavenly bodies. His presence was gorgeous and he was respected by all. Purport. In the great assembly of saintly personalities, there was Vyasadeva, the Brahma Rishi, Narada, the Deva Rishi, Parshuram, the great ruler of the Kshatriya kings, etc. Some of them were powerful incarnations of the Lord. Sukadeva Goswami was not known as Brahma Rishi, Raja Rishi, or Deva Rishi, nor was he an incarnation like Narada, Vyasa, and Parshuram, and yet he excelled them in respects paid. This means that the devotee of the Lord is more honored in the world than the Lord himself. One should therefore never minimize the importance of a devotee like Sukadeva Goswami. So the essence is this, that devotee of the Lord is more honored in the world than the Lord himself. One should therefore never minimize the importance of a devotee like Sukadeva Goswami. Actually, we should not even think negative about non-devotees as well, actually, because in one sense everybody is a devotee, just that it is covered, the devotion is covered, right? Yeah, but it is a hard thing to do, but if we can practice to give respect to the super soul and the soul in the body, in the covering, in the mundane covering, which is temporary. Okay, dear devotees, so 8:27.